drugs. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions?
That was one of the first commercials that warned people about drugs. Then they amped up the message.
Wait, it's not over yet.
This is what your family goes through. And your friends and your money. And your drugs and your self-respect and your future.
Any questions?
Well, I have some questions. I know it's true that some drug users put themselves and their families through hell. But if illegal drugs are as horrible and addictive as we've been told, then how come the government's own statistics say millions of Americans have used those drugs, but only a small percentage still use them? Well, the author of High Price, a neuroscientist's journey of self-discovery that challenges everything you know about drugs and society, says drugs are not as addictive or as dangerous as the government and media have made them out to be. Dr. Carl Hart, why should we believe you? You look like a drug dealer.
Well, drug dealers must be attractive as hell these days. Well, you should believe me in part because I've been doing this for about 20-some years. Doing this, I mean, I've been studying drugs, studying the effects of drugs in people.
At Columbia University, you bring people in for tests.
At Columbia University, that's right. We've studied drugs like marijuana, methamphetamine, crack cocaine, and so forth. And as you pointed out, the data simply shows that the vast majority of people who use these drugs don't go on to become addicted. In fact, some of these people who have used these drugs go on to become president. The current president, the president before the current president, George Bush, Bill Clinton, all of those guys have used illegal drugs at some point in their life.
All right, but all we know for sure is that they've used weed and maybe dabbled in cocaine in a couple cases. The message now is that crack and meth are getting worse, and those are just, they automatically hook you.
The same thing was said about marijuana in the 1930s. People said you go on to use this drug, you go on to commit murder, you go on to use heroin.
Reefer madness.
Exactly. And so one of the reasons that that was allowed to happen is because there were few people who had actually used marijuana. The same is true when we think about drugs like crack cocaine today and methamphetamine. Not as many people use those drugs, and so the rest, or these stories, these incredible stories, can be made up about these drugs because people simply don't know. But I have given thousands of doses of these drugs in my studies, and I'm here to tell you that the public has been misled.
In your laboratory, you get these drugs legally. The DEA lets you have them, and you advertise and bring users in, and then you recruit.
Absolutely. We've jumped through all these levels of approvals, and we recruit participants via Craigslist. We advertise in the Village Voice, word of mouth.
Crack user, come on in?
Well, we say people who have used cocaine before, yeah, that sort of thing. That's right.
And I'm looking at the government statistics here of the number of people who've ever tried drugs and who've used in the last month. And it seems like 95% of the people give it up. The most addictive seem to be marijuana and pain relievers, where 86% used it in the last month.
Yeah, so I guess when you say most of the people give it up, I don't know if that's a way to really talk about this. You don't necessarily have to give it up in order to use the drug without problems. So there are the vast majority of people who use drugs like cocaine use it on the weekends, or use it on a monthly basis, or use it on every 6 months or something.
And
of that
hold
nature.
Jobs and
hold jobs. They pay taxes. They do all those sorts of things in a similar way that we use drugs like alcohol. All of these, the body doesn't recognize that a psychoactive drug is legal or illegal.
And crack and meth are no worse than alcohol?
The problem that makes crack cocaine and methamphetamine so dangerous is the things that they're cut with, the illegality of the drugs and so forth. Whereas alcohol, we are pretty sure that what you get with alcohol is pure alcohol.
The most demonized drug today is meth, and I see pictures of meth users with no teeth. I assume that although the other drugs were overhyped, this drug meth really is just horrible and horribly addictive. Earlier, we showed part of this commercial where meth users watch TV while their friend overdoses on the floor.
This isn't normal. on meth? It is.
This is propaganda?
That's pure exaggeration, and that does so much harm because people actually think that they're getting a drug education by watching those types of commercials. I can't say this strongly enough. There are few things that has done more harm to our drug public education than commercials like that.
Kids learn to tune the government out. They don't believe anymore.
Not only do they tune the government out, they tune out people like me. Anybody who has drug education, they think that it's untrue because of the lack of credibility that we now have as a result of the government with these hysterical commercials.
What does more harm to America, the drugs or the drug war?
Now, one of the things I want to make clear here is that drugs, whether it's alcohol or whether it's crack cocaine, they should be taken seriously because they certainly can produce some harms. But the drug war, it's unquestionably that the drug war has done more harm to specific communities. That's without a doubt. But the reason why it's allowed to continue as it has is because the harm that it does, or the major portions of the harm, is happening in communities that we don't really care about as a country.